Before we go any further, let us consider how Kabbalists dealt with the problem of evil. You are going to find this one of the most amazing teachings on how did evil begin that you have ever heard anywhere in any teaching. Kabbalists were well aware of evil forces. Both popular Judaism and rabbinic literature talked about demons and evil spirits. The rabbinic literature also talked about Satan and its counterpart in man, the, quote, evil urge in each individual that entices him to sin. Kabbalists wrote at length about fallen angels, demons, and forces of evil that collectively formed the, quote, other side. Yet one of the cardinal principles of Kabbalah is that everything ultimately has roots in Ein Sof. How then did Kabbalists account for the presence of evil in the universe? Listen well. There were different, often conflicting explanations. One of the most common was that evil emerged out of Gevura, or Din. More precisely, many Kabbalists saw judgment, untempered by mercy, as the root of evil. Now you see on the screen this triad formed by Chesed, Gevura, and Tiferet. Chesed is the fourth sphira. Chesed, like Binah, does not easily translate into English. It is usually translated as love or mercy, but it can also be translated as grace or loving kindness. The fourth sphira is sometimes called Gedula, or greatness, instead of Chesed. Chesed is located in the center of the pillar that bears its name, the pillar of mercy. The fifth sphira is Gevura. Gevura means strength, severity, or power. This sphira is frequently called Din, spelled D-I-N, meaning judgment or justice. Although some Kabbalists use the title Gevura and others Din, the fifth sphira combines the attributes of both. Gevura is also located in the center of the pillar that bears its name, the pillar of judgment. Remember, the sphirot are the vessels. That may be a new name you haven't written down, vessels, or chalices that make up the tree of life. Kabbalists have used many synonyms for the sphirot, including lights, names, stages, crowns, mirrors, sources, and the inner faces of God. The inner faces of God. Rabbi Moses Luzzatto, an 18th century Kabbalist, thought of the sphirot as transformers that decreased the intensity of the light of Ein Sof. He wrote, "The 10 sphirot, emanations, act as veils." It's another name for sphirot, veils. 10 stages, vessels, or degrees, which the Creator issued to serve as channels through which His bounty might be transmitted to man, restraining that bounty to the extent that the worlds shall not disappear because of the too great abundance of light, yet providing a sufficient amount of it to ensure their continued existence. Chesed and Gevura function as a complementary pair. They represent the extremes of mercy and love on the one hand, and severity and judgment on the other. They balance and hold each other in check. Daniel Matt of the Center for Judaic Studies at the Graduate Theological Union says, Chesed and Gevura are two sides of the divine personality, free-flowing love and strict judgment, grace and limitation. Ideally, a balance is achieved, symbolized by the central sphira, Tiferet. However, if judgment is not softened by love, Din lashes out and threatens to destroy life. Chesed's tendency is to emanate and expand Ein Sof's essence without limit. Gevura presents the opposite force, the power to limit God's goodness by limiting Chesed's expansion. According to Charles Ponce, Gevura, the power of God, is the sphera of justice and control, capable of meting out punishment. Its nature is feminine, and it limits the abundance of mercy. Judgment tempers mercy, and mercy tempers judgment. By the same token, the severities of power are tempered by mercy, so the two exist in a state of equilibrium, of harmony. This sphera is representative of the contraction of the divine will, because mercy is a life-giving power, ever productive in its activity. It would have been unwise to have let it express itself without setting some limit. It was for the reason that Gevura, judgment and power or justice, holds things in check, that Gevura had to be created. Yet without the compassion and creativity of mercy, justice in its role of the stern judge would cause things to contract to the point of non-existence. Judgment. How El Morya insists that we refrain from criticism, condemnation, and judgment. This is why judgment untempered by mercy is the root of evil. So if you express judgment of another untempered by mercy, you are tying into the roots of evil. You are establishing ties to roots that are difficult to uproot. According to Rabbi Green, the Zohar explained the origin of evil by means of a myth. The dominant form this myth takes has to do with a necessary tension that exists as the fourth and fifth sphirot, Chesed and Din, that is Gevura, emerge from Binah. Din, the force of divine rigor or judgment, resents being tied to Chesed, the unmitigated flow of love. In the very moment of its emanation, it broke forth from the spherotic system, saying in the words of the Zohar, "I shall rule." This is the statement of Gevura, who is also called Din, judgment. So you could say this is the original act of rebellion, when judgment says, I want to be judgment and mete out judgment without being forced to qualify that judgment with mercy. The measuring rod of the Sphirot used the power of Ein Sof to quickly force Din back into line, but in that moment of escape, some portion of its power was released that could not be retrieved. That portion of Din, now turned against God, began its own Sphirot emanation in mocking imitation of the divine world. The Zohar sees evil as originating in justice itself, when that justice is not tempered with compassionate, loving kindness. What did Jesus say? He said, the Son of God came not into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might have eternal life. Thus, in Jesus Christ, the full manifestation of the tree of life, we see the force of compassion that has come to defeat the fanaticism, the anger, the hate and hate creation, and the judgment of the fallen angels who embody that gone astray Gevura, that fallen Din. The force of Din within God has a legitimate role, punishing the wicked and setting out to limit the indiscriminate love flow of Chesed, which itself can be destructive if not held in proper balance. But once Din has escaped the demands of love, it is no longer to be trusted. Do not trust that man or woman or child who does not have that love, that all-compassionate love that can consume and bind judgment and yet hold the stern rod of discipline for the flowering of the soul. Judgment in our society is a fanaticism. It is racism. It is bigotry. It is misuse of the spoken word in the press. We see it everywhere, where people have power that they ought to use as divine justice, and yet they misqualify it as a grievous judgment that is condemnatory. There is an aspect of the compassionate Christ, which we call discrimination and discernment. Discrimination is knowing light from darkness, good from evil, discerning the spirits, knowing what is acting in a person. That comes from Tiferet, the all-knowing mind of God in the Son. Judgment, when it is perverted, comes from beneath and comes from that original rebellion. Deen then becomes a perversion of God's justice, one that would use his punishing powers to wreak destruction without cause, to render judgment that is not necessary. The problem can be solved with love and truth. We don't have to destroy someone with judgment in order to force them to be somebody that we want them to be. The other side, sometimes called the emanation of the left hand, takes its name from the perverted spherotic system that emanated from Deen, which is on the left or feminine side of the tree. Why does God allow the other side to exist? The Zohar has an answer. God uses evil to punish the wicked. God uses evil to test men, but God is not passive in the face of evil. However, rather than destroy evil outright, God allows the righteous to destroy evil in his name. He's turned it over to us. How do you like that? According to the Zohar, the other side has no power of its own. Don't we say it? Evil is not real, and its appearance has no power. It was cut off from the life-giving energies that flow from Ein Sof. Teaching that we have heard for years, how the fallen angels who embody unrighteous judgment are cut off from the tree of life, the very same ascended master teaching. Thus, the other side is inert and would have no power if man did not animate it by his evil deeds. So evil could not exist in our lives if we did not give it life, give it energy that comes to us from our own tree of life, our own mighty I Am presence, our own Malkuth, the Divine Mother. Yes, we empower evil. It has no other source by which it is empowered except in our thoughts, feelings, words, and deeds, whereby it extracts from the very capillaries, the blood vessels of our tree of life, drop by drop, our energy. When man sins, he gives the energies of God given to him for a holy purpose to the forces of evil. That is exactly what the Ascended Masters teach. Zohar says once evil is reactivated, it tries to tempt man into sinning again and again because it requires his energy for its continued existence. So it goes after you once it has a hook in you of this drug or that habit or that momentum and tries to make you reinforce it. The more you reinforce it, the more you're imprisoned by your actions, and the more it can siphon from you the energy of misqualification. Kabbalists recognize that man can protect himself from the other side. How? He does this by observing mitzvot, or commandments outlined in the Torah. But he must do this with a proper inner direction and concentration, in other words, with a profound spirituality. A rote performance of mitzvah is an empty act. When a man keeps the commandments in an enlightened manner, he heals the breach that separates him from God. And why does he heal the breach? Because in keeping the commandments, he is one with the Son, who is the embodiment of the law of God. So when he is one with the Son, the living Christ, the universal Christ, he has now become a part of the mediator that can connect him to the I am that I am. He is then able to defeat the evil urge, because the power of Christ, the Son of God, in him multiplies every act and thought and word and deed he takes in keeping with the commandments of God. He is then able to defeat the evil urge and attract angels to protect him from the demonic powers of the other side. An early Kabbalistic text called The Secret of the Tree of Knowledge said, "The righteous man who raises his pure and immaculate soul to the supernal holy soul unites with it and knows the future, and that is the meaning of the prophet and his path. For the evil urge has no power over him to separate him from the upper soul." This text warned that a man who walked the path of evil would cut himself off from the supernal holy soul, or the part of the soul that never separated from God. It said, "If a man walks in the path of evil, which is Satan, then he chops off and separates his soul from the supernal soul. Those who walk such a path are not worthy to have the crown, keter, of God's reign that animates everything beyond their heads, but they are worthy of death." The Zohar warned against practicing magic from the side of the left. In other words, blending your energies with Din, or the fallen Gevura, and using those energies to manipulate people and life. The Zohar said, "It is forbidden to a man to abandon any vessel of his house into the possession of the other side." What are the vessels of his house? His spiritual chakras, his physical organs, his 4 lower bodies. You must not surrender any part of yourself, your mind or your being, to the other side. For many emissaries are in wait to punish such an act, and from that time, blessings do not rest upon that man who has abandoned the vessels of his house to the other side. All the more if he assigns to the other side the most precious part of himself, for from that time he belongs to the other side. His soul is the prisoner of it, and when the time comes for the celestial form which has been given to him to depart from this world, which Saint Germain has taught us is the deathless soul or body, the evil spirit to which he clung comes and takes it, and it is never again restored to him. This teaching is so profound. I asked Al-Muria of its accuracy. He says it is 95% accurate. It is parallel almost to the letter with the teachings of Al-Muria on evil. Listen to them, read them, abide by them, and be warned that because we are in the lower world, we are subject to the forces of evil, which God has chosen not to bind for us. He has chosen to allow us to bind them because some part of ourselves has given of ourselves to that side. So now we have to go forth with Archangel Michael and his legions to rescue our souls and other souls from fallen angels. We have to go to them and take back the power we gave to them when we misqualified the 10 Sfirot. This is why we're on earth. This is why we're in embodiment, why we have reincarnated at this time. And blessed are ye who hear the word of the Kabbalah and understand the most profound mysteries of it and can immediately take it and apply it in your life. This is an astounding revelation of the right side and the left side of the tree of life. It explains the fallen potential of the soul that must be repaired before she comes to the steps and stages of the tree of life. Repaired is the literal word for what happens. You know, we have many, many layers of skin, and we have many, many, many layers to our auras, like veils upon veils upon veils. Most people have tears in one or more of those veils. Some of the tears go all the way through all the layers. Some only go through some layers. So we are vulnerable. We are vulnerable in this octave. The angels come when we call them. And they take out their needle and thread, and they stay with us day after day and month after month as we give the healing decrees and the violet flame, and they sew up the tears. They mend the rents in our garment. Be very respectful of angels who perform this task, and don't go out again and rend your garments by discord. You need to be whole. You need to have on the whole armor of God to deal with the adversary. Isaac Luria's concept of the origin of evil was based on the idea found in the Zohar, but it was more complex. Luria described in great detail 3 events in the life of God. The first event in the life of God was the contraction of the infinite light to a single point at the beginning of the creation. The second event was the shattering of the vessels. In Luria's creation myth, a great catastrophe accompanied creation. When the light flowed forth from Ein Sof, the unknowable God, it flowed into the first 3 sphirot without any problem: Keter, Chokhmah, Binah. But the lower sphirot were not strong enough to hold the light, and they shattered. The disaster scattered sparks of light and shards of the vessels throughout empty space. The shattering of the vessels inaugurated the process of creation of the lower worlds. Now the sparks of light are embedded in dense matter. The powers of evil developed out of the fragments of the shattered vessels that sunk to the lower depths of primordial space where the spirit of evil dwells, in other words, into the astral plane. The sphirot were partially repaired after the catastrophe, but they must be repaired completely, and the sparks of light must be restored to their original level. This is the work, the mighty work of the ages, to restore and repair not only our own souls, but the sparks of light. You can think of it as taking a cosmic tweezer and pulling out little iron filings, little sparks and fragments embedded in matter. The third event is the process of restoration and repair, which is carried out by the Kabbalists. Pearl Epstein explains, according to Luria, the task of the Kabbalist in his private meditations now encompassed the universe. Once the purified, humbled mind had attached itself to its divine source, it was obliged to plunge downward into the descending worlds with renewed strength and to withdraw the holy sparks from the husks of matter encasing every being, flower, mineral, and demon inhabiting them. This is exactly what we are taught. Our union with our holy Christ self and our mighty I Am presence is not for the exaltation or even escape of our souls, is that we might plunge into the depths of the lower realms and rescue souls who have not accrued to their auras the power of light that sets them free. For this purpose, the Ari developed an entirely new system of concentration depicting his elaborate mental exercises in the form of kavanot over the letters and phrases of the daily prayers. Kavanot are contemplative symbols denoting specific visualizations. Since the performance of these exercises required the utmost purity of mind and body, the Ari initiated a parallel course of tikkun, correction. Certain prescribed formulas given individually by the teacher to the disciple were designed to cleanse his soul of its defects and thus prepare the way for purification of all that it reflected. These certain prescribed formulas are given to us today by Saint Germain in the form of our violet flame decrees. They are the sacred formulas for the cleansing of the soul and its defects. The tree of life is the central image of Kabbalistic meditation, yet the writings of the early Kabbalists speak very little about their techniques of meditation. Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, a modern Kabbalist, said that Joseph Jikatilia's Gates of Light is an exception. On the surface, Gates of Light seems to be a theoretical work, but according to Kaplan, it is really a guide for those who wish to ascend the ladder of the Sefirot in meditation. That ascending of the ladder of the Sefirot in meditation is like a spiritual exercise, like a physical yoga. Ascending up these Sefirot daily through decrees, through the science of mantra we are given, you are involved in a dress rehearsal every day of your life for the moment and the hour when your bridegroom comes and you are called to your ascension. Joseph Jikatilia and Moses de Leon were contemporaries who influenced each other's work. The Zohar also suggests rising through the Sefirot during meditation. But one had to begin with Shekinah. She is the gate. According to Daniel Matt, the Zohar's concept of the ascent goes like this. Shekinah is the opening to the divine. One who enters must enter through this gate. Once inside, one finds that the Sefirot are no longer an abstract theological system. They become a map of consciousness, a map of consciousness. The mystic climbs and probes, discovering dimensions of being. Spiritual and psychological wholeness is achieved by meditating on the qualities of each Sefirah. One imitates and integrates the attributes of God. The path is not easy. Divine will can be harsh. Abraham was commanded to sacrifice Isaac in order to balance love with rigor. From the other side, demonic forces threaten and seduce. Contemplatively and psychologically, evil must be encountered, not evaded. Meet it head on, challenge it, and dispense with it. You must never be a coward and turn your head away from a scene which requires the rooting out of evil and the bringing forth of the Christ. By knowing and withstanding the dark underside of wisdom, Abraham was refined. Near the top of the Sefirot ladder, meditation reaches Binah. She is called Teshuvah, return. The ego returns to the womb of being. Binah cannot be held in thought. She is called Hu. Who is that? An intuitive flash illuminating and disappearing as sunbeams play on the surface of water. In the depths of Binah lies Hokmah. Chokhmah, wisdom. The mystic is nourished from this sphere. It is so profound and primal that it cannot be known consciously. It can only be absorbed. Isaac the Blind, one of the earliest Kabbalists, says, "No creature can contemplate the wondrous paths of wisdom except one who sucks from it." This is meditation through sucking, not through knowing. As the babe as at the mother's breast, so we assimilate wisdom. Beyond Chokhmah is the nothingness of Keter, the annihilation of thought. Isn't it a wonderful moment in the day when you lay your head upon your pillow and thought can cease? It is a wonderful moment because in that moment when you let go of the thinking man, you transcend it and you go to the higher octaves. In this ultimate sphera, human consciousness expands, dissolves into infinity. Expands, dissolves into infinity. Kabbalists ascended the ladder of the Sefirot in meditation. starting with Shekinah, Malchut, the lowest Sphira, and working their way up to Keter, the highest Sphira, as follows. First, Shekinah, Malchut, kingdom. Then Yesod, foundation. Then Hod, majesty. Netzah, triumph. Tiferet, beauty. Gevurah, power. Chesed, love. Binah, understanding. Chokhmah, wisdom. Keter, crown.
You're watching Elizabeth Clare Prophet, world-renowned author and founder of Summit University. Summit University is located at the beautiful Royal Teton Ranch in Park County, Montana, just north of Yellowstone National Park. If you'd like more information, call 800-323-5228. That's 800-323-5228.
Kabbalists, with their tree of life and its 10 sphirot, had to defend themselves against the charge of advocating a dualism bordering on polytheism. Kabbalists insisted that Ein Sof and the sphirot formed a unity, like a flame joined to a coal. They also claimed that if Ein Sof did not constantly keep his attention on the sphirot, they would cease to exist. Therefore, they were not independent, but dependent, and there was only one God. Hear, O Yisrael, the Lord our God is one Lord. Moses Luzzatto wrote, all the sphirot are nothing but the light of the infinite himself. There is no difference between him and the sphirot. He is the cause, they are the effect. The expression, he clothes them, means that his will perpetually animates the sphirot, for thereby he maintains them as channels through which he controls and governs the world. As we embody the sphirot, then through us, God controls and governs the world. There is one addition to the 10 sphirot. It is called Da'at. Da'at, knowledge. Da'at is located on the central column of the tree, below Chokhmah, wisdom, and Binah, understanding, and above Tiferet, beauty. Da'at. Da'at is a quasi-sphira. It is sometimes described as a secret or hidden attribute. Arya Kaplan said that Da'at is merely the point of confluence between wisdom and understanding. Of course, that makes sense. Wisdom and understanding should beget knowledge. In many ways, however, it behaves as a sphira, thus it is often included among them. Gershom Scholem said that Da'at harmonizes Chokhmah and Binah, but the Kabbalists did not consider it to be a separate sphira. Instead, Kabbalists thought of Da'at as the external aspect of Keter. At least one tradition holds that Da'at was the source of miraculous powers. According to Pearl Epstein, some disciples of the great mystic Rabbi Isaac Luria claimed to fly through the air by drawing down the light of a secret attribute called Da'at. So if you want to fly through the air, recite the name Da'at. The tree of life is only one of many possible configurations of the sphirot. The sphirot also appear in the form of primordial man, Adam Kadmon. If you didn't get it, it's Adam Kadmon. Adam Kadmon. There were a number of conceptions of primordial man. Gershom Scholem pointed out that Kabbalists thought of Adam Kadmon as the concealed shape of the Godhead itself. In that concept, you could say that the Adam Kadmon was the image and likeness of God in which we are made. In the Zohar and other early Kabbalistic works, the sphirot formed the body of primordial man. According to the Zohar, the three highest sphirot form Adam Kadmon's head. That's Keter, Chokhmah, Binah. Hesed, the fourth sphira, is the right arm. Givuram, the fifth sphira, is the left arm. Tiferet, the sixth Sphira, forms the trunk of the body. Netzah and Hod, the seventh and eighth, form the right and left legs. Yesod, the ninth Sphira, forms the male sexual organs. Adam Kadmon is androgynous. The first 9 Sphirot form the male half of being. Malchut is the female half. In the 16th century, Rabbi Isaac Luria described primordial Adam as a series of concentric spheres formed by the Sphirot. Rabbi Chaim Vital, Rabbi Luria's closest disciple, recorded this teaching on Adam Kadmon. Ein Sof emits a line or ray of light that is refracted into a sphere by the vacuum of space. This first concentric sphere, which adheres closely to Ein Sof, is called Keter, of primordial man. Then the straight line forms another concentric sphere within the other. This sphere is called Huchma, of primordial man. That which joins all the spheres together is the subtle thin line which spreads out from Ein Sof, traversing, descending, and joining each sphere to another until it reaches the very last. Next, the line spreads out in a straight way from top to bottom, from the highest point of the highest sphere to the very lowest and last of the spheres. It consists of 10 Sphirot arranged mysteriously in the image of an upright human figure. Adam Kadmon is also the archetype for earthly man. So Adam was that archetype. David Ariel explains, primordial man contains all the attributes of divinity in perfect form. He is also the blueprint for human beings. Therefore, in the world, human beings are the embodiment of the Sphirot. Every human being is a divine microcosm. The original Adam Kadmon was actually in the etheric octave. It was the divine and the inner blueprint out of which a certain level of sons and daughters of God were intended to be created, because a certain group of sons and daughters of God, namely ourselves, had to descend from the etheric to lower and lower levels. And therefore, the etheric body contained the matrix of what the perfected physical would be. We are not manifesting today in our physical bodies the original blueprint of this Adam Kadmon. And so it was not intended that we should have to descend lower than the etheric level, but we did do so, and therefore our bodies have strayed from the original matrix. That matrix is there, and you can call upon it to outpicture it. The Sphirot have their counterpart in the 7 chakras that are dispersed along the spine. Hurl Epstein, author of Kabbalah, The Way of the Jewish Mystic, says that the Kabbalists related the Sphirot to the chakras. Although they did not use the term chakra, they used their knowledge of these spheres of energy to enhance their meditation. Another way of meditating on the all-important body centers was to visualize the spinal column as a palm branch, the lulav, and the heart as a citron, the atrag. These are ritual objects used during the Feast of Tabernacles at the harvest season. Regarding his body as the tabernacle containing the divine spirit, know ye not that ye are the temple of the living God? The Kabbalist meditated on the fragrant-smelling citron, visualizing it as at his heart's core. The single pillar extending from heaven to earth, which led the Israelites to the wilderness, became synonymous in his mind with the lulav, the palm branch. He visualized this as his spine. There are various systems for assigning the Sphirot to the chakras. The system proposed by Rabbi Yonason Gershom is correct. Keter, crown, corresponds to the crown chakra. Chokhmah and Binah, wisdom and understanding, correlate to the third eye. Chesed, mercy, and Gevurah, judgment, form the throat chakra. Thus, it is through the throat chakra that we give mercy and judgment by our words. Tiferet, beauty, is the heart chakra. Netzah, triumph, and Hod, endurance, form the solar plexus chakra. Yesod, foundation, is the seat of the soul chakra, and Malchut, kingdom, the feminine of God, is the base of the spine chakra. Now let us consider how the Kabbalists understood the soul. This is most interesting. We have never had this particular understanding of the soul given to us. The Zohar said the soul had three parts. Nefesh was the vital spirit, Ruach, the intellectual spirit, and Neshama, the spiritual soul. So it's like you visualize this soul and it has three planes to it. Vital spirit, intellectual spirit, spiritual soul. The Zohar also describes the Neshama as the holy soul, a spark of Binah, the divine intellect. The Zohar explained the function of the three parts of the soul and how Abraham attained the highest level of the soul. It said, soul, nefesh, is the lowest stirring. It supports and feeds the body and is closely connected with it. When it sufficiently qualifies itself to become the throne on which rests the lower spirit, Ruach, as it is written, until the Spirit be poured on us from on high. When both have prepared themselves sufficiently, they are qualified to receive the higher spirit, Neshama, to which the lower spirit, Ruach, becomes a throne, and which is undiscoverable, supreme over all. Thus there is throne resting on throne, and a throne for the highest. Levels of degrees of the consciousness of the soul. From observing these grades of the soul, one obtains an insight into the higher wisdom, and it is wholly through wisdom that in this way certain mysteries are connected together. For nefesh is the lowest stirring in which the body cleaves, almost the depths of the subconscious. It is like the dark light at the bottom of the candle flame, which clings to the wick and exists only through it. When fully kindled, it becomes a throne for the white light above it. When both are fully kindled, the white light becomes a throne for the light which cannot be fully discerned. It is the light of the candle that is no longer physical. It is an unknown something resting on that white light, and so there is formed a complete light. The Zohar seems to be saying wherever there is a fire, you don't see all the fire because some of it is spiritual. So it is with a man who attains perfection and is called holy, as it is in the verse for the holy ones that are in the earth. And so also it is in the upper world. Hence at the time when Abram entered the land, God appeared to him, and Abraham received there a nefesh, and built an altar to the corresponding grade of divinity, to the corresponding sphera. Then he journeyed to the south, receiving a ruach. Finally, he rose to the height of cleaving to God through the medium of the neshama, whereupon he built an altar to the Lord, indicating the most recondite grade corresponding to the neshama. That is the most profound grade. He then found that it was requisite for him to test himself and endow himself with grades. So Abraham went down to Egypt. There he preserved himself from being seduced by those bright essences, and after testing himself, he returned to his place. He went up from Egypt literally, strengthened and confirmed in faith, and reached the highest grade of faith. Going up from Egypt means rising from the lower sphirot to the higher. Thenceforth Abram was acquainted with the higher wisdom and clung to God, and Abraham became the right hand of the world. Isn't that an amazing statement? Here is another passage on the soul from Zohar that I'd like to share with you. This applies to every one of you and to something you do every single day. When a man lies down in bed, his vital spirit, nefesh, leaves him and begins to mount on high, leaving with the body only the impression of a receptacle which contains the heartbeat. The rest of it tries to soar from grade to grade. But in doing so, it encounters certain bright but unclean essences. Watch out as you pass through the astral plane. There are bright essences which will attract you like baubles and trinkets of spirits who have lost their souls and will pull you toward themselves by the misuse of a borrowed light. Bright but unclean essences. Do not be attracted by them. Put on the whole armor of God when you lay your head upon your pillow at night, and set your mind as an arrow, and set the point that you desire to go to, for instance, the Royal Teton Retreat. See it before you, and see your soul going straight as an arrow to that retreat. And make that determined will, make your decision before you leave your body, what you will and will not do out of your body. By setting the course of your sail and your will, you will get to your destination. If you do not, sometimes you will be too weak, physically, spiritually, mentally, to resist those bright yet unclean essences. If the soul is pure and has not defiled itself by day, it will rise above these unclean essences. But if not, it will become defiled among them. It will cleave to them, and it will not rise any further. There they show her certain things which are going to happen in the near future, and sometimes they delude the soul and show her false things. Thus she goes about the whole night until the man wakes up, when she returns to her place. Note that the Zohar, in line with Catholicism, refers to the soul as a she, the feminine potential to realize the masculine trinity. Happy are the righteous to whom God reveals his secrets in dreams, so that they may be on their guard against sin. Whatever you bring back from the astral plane and the bright and unclean essences is not reliable and is not a revelation from God. You need to learn to know the difference. This doesn't happen to be an organization of dreamers interpreting dreams, because we have the direct communication of God through our Holy Christ self. Woe to the sinners who defile their bodies and their souls. As for those who have not defiled themselves during the day, when they fall asleep at night, their souls begin to ascend and first enter those grades which we have mentioned, but they do not cleave to them and continue to mount further. Keep on climbing. Climb the highest mountain of your dreams. The soul which is privileged thus to rise finally appears before the gate of the celestial palace and yearns with all its might to behold the beauty of the King and to visit his sanctuary. According to Gershom Scholem, Kabbalists unanimously agreed that Devakut was the ultimate goal on the spiritual path. But there is disagreement among scholars whether Devakut led to union with God. Moshe Idel, one of the leading contemporary experts on Kabbalah, noted that time and again, Gershom Scholem stressed that a total union with the divine is absent in Jewish texts. Idel cited the following passage from Scholem's famous work, Major Trends in Jewish Mysticism. Quote, "It is only in extremely rare cases that ecstasy signifies actual union with God, in which the human individuality abandons itself to the rapture of complete submersion in the divine stream. Even in this ecstatic frame of mind, the Jewish mystic almost invariably retains a sense of the distance between the Creator and his creature." Now, I disagree with that statement by Gershom Scholem, and so does Idel. Idel points out that Scholem was such a fine scholar of Jewish mysticism that many other scholars accepted his views uncritically. But using Kabbalistic texts for evidence, Edel says that some Kabbalists did pursue complete union with God. Isaac of Acre, a 14th century Kabbalist, wrote, "This rational soul will cleave to Ein Sof and will become total and universal after she had been individual. This is due to her experience in the palace while she was yet imprisoned in it, but she will become universal because of the nature of her real source." Because you have a nature of a source that is the I am that I am, and you cleave to it, you will become universal. In another text, Isaac uses a variation of the drop in the ocean metaphor. The soul will cleave to the divine intellect, and it will cleave to her. "Draw nigh to me, and I will draw nigh to you." And she and the intellect will become one entity, as if somebody pours out a jug of water into a running well, that all becomes one. And this is the secret meaning of the phrase, "a fire devouring fire," an all-consuming fire that consumes all other fires. One of the disciples of Abraham, Abulafia, a 13th century Kabbalist, wrote the following text. In it, the letter Yud stands for a man seeking union with God. It said, "He is the Yud in this world who has received the power from the All, and he comprises the All. He is like the Yud in the realm of the Sphirot." The man who seeks union with God and establishes that devotion becomes the Yud of the Yud He Vav He, the I of the I am that I am in this world. In other words, you can be God in action. Understand, therefore, that there is no discernible difference between this Yud and that Yud, but a very fine one from the aspect of spirituality. And this is the secret of the verse, "and cleave unto him." Put your arms around your mighty I am presence. Hold your mighty I am presence. Cling to the feet of your mighty I am presence. Cling to the law, the truth, the love, the teaching. Cleave. It is the cleaving of Yud to Yud, the God in you below to the God in you above, in order to complete the circle. When you look at the chart of the I am presence, draw a circle around it, and then realize that that circle has inside of it a figure eight flow. And at the nexus of the figure eight is the Son of God, Tiferet. And through Tiferet, you are the Yud below, as God is the Yud above. In a note explaining this passage, Moshe Edel wrote, "Each of the two Yuds are explicitly defined as halves of the circle. The circle is completed by the ascension of the lower man and his turning into the higher man." What could be a simpler expression of the path and teachings of the ascended masters? This higher man is the one who sits on the throne and shall be called the Lord our righteousness. Let us now return to Ezekiel's vision and to the tree of life superimposed over the chart of your divine self. As you recall, Ezekiel had a vision of the likeness of a man, surrounded by the appearance of fire that looked like a rainbow. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord, Yud He Vav He. Ezekiel's vision was nothing less than that of his own mighty I am presence, surrounded by the causal body of concentric spheres of the Sphirot. This presence of the I am that I am correlates with Keter. Tiferet correlates to the Holy Christ self. Malchut correlates to the lower figure in the chart. In this case, in his vision, Ezekiel saw the 7 heavens above him, the 7 spheres of his causal body. He saw Tiferet. He saw I am that I am. And that which he saw, he became. Will you do it? Yes.
For more information on the mystical paths of the world's religions, call toll-free 1-800-323-5228. The preceding program was presented by Summit University, Box A, Livingston, Montana, 59047-1390. If you'd like to know more, call this number or write this address.